Hey everyone, my name is Jerica, and I just want to share my story about my spiritual awakening and my experience with having a negative energy attached to me. I'm hoping that by sharing my story, it will help anyone out there that might be going through something similar, or just help people learn discernment a little bit. My guides have been suggesting for a bit now that I share it, and I've told pieces on Facebook posts over the last year, but I feel like I'm ready to tell the full story now. And also, if at any point it sounds like I'm reading, I am. I have an awful memory, especially when put on the spot, so I figured that I'd just write my story down. That way I don't forget anything important, because I definitely will if I didn't write it down. So, this all started a few years ago. I remember that out of nowhere, I'd be up most nights just worrying about like what happens after we die, especially when it came to my family or my pets. I'd always wonder, like, where are they going to go when they die? Do they go anywhere? Am I going to go anywhere? It wasn't just a worry, though. Like, it was pure fear. I could not, like, get rid of it. It was, like, all I could think about for the longest time. And, like, around that same time, I started having these overwhelmingly strong feelings that I needed to change something in my life, but I didn't know what. I just, like, could not shake the feeling that something had to change. I was supposed to be doing something different. I even thought I was supposed to be going somewhere. Like, I had this thought for a while that I wanted to move far away, and Thailand kept coming to mind. I don't know why, though, because I had never really wanted to go to Thailand before then. So, to help with the fear of what happens after I die or my family or pets die, I decided to turn to religion to try and find answers the best I could. I also really wanted to try and be a better person. Not that I was like a bad person, but I just like also during that time felt a strong urge to better myself. So I thought Christianity could help with that. So over the course of a few months, maybe like 2 or 3 months, I read and I studied the entire Bible, which is not easy. And I found out that after I was done, I like had even more questions than before, and I had like no answers at all. At least none that really resonated with me that felt true. And then I remember that one day my mom, she sent me a message on Facebook of a YouTube video of a near death experience. It was from a guy named Alex Ferrari. He has a YouTube channel called Next Level Soul podcast on YouTube. He interviews like hundreds and hundreds of people that have had near death experiences. He also interviews like psychics and just like a bunch of different people. And it's really cool. You should check it out. The one my mom sent me was of a man that died and took a tour of the other side while he was having his near death experience. I was like really fascinated by it, but one thing he kept describing started like not sitting well with me. He kept talking about like past lives, and since at that time I was very Christian, I just couldn't wrap my head around the idea of past lives. Like, it actually upset me and I just dismissed it instantly. But I was still fascinated by the whole concept of near death experiences. So I kept watching videos on his channel, and I realized that more and more people, like almost like 90% of the people that were having near death experiences, were talking about past lives. So I tried to accept that maybe it was a real thing. And I can't remember like how long that took to accept or even like begin to accept, but I did. So one day I was watching videos. That's what I did for fun in my free time. And I came across a lady he was interviewing named Suzanne Spooner. She was a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner. It's a type of hypnosis that the late Dolores Cannon invented. Like, I think it was back in the 70s. I don't know for sure, so don't take my word on that. She would hypnotize her clients and bring them to like a few different past lives, and then she would walk them through the lives, like she would bring them to 3 important days that stood out in that lifetime, and then she would bring them to the day of their death, and they would actually they would be hypnotized. They would see how they died. She would make it so that they couldn't obviously feel the pain, but they would experience their death in that lifetime. And I always thought that was really interesting to listen to, because people have died very many ways throughout time. So it was just interesting. After that, she would call forth their higher self and just ask a bunch of questions that her clients had given her. And then the higher self would answer and then perform a healing on the client. That was kind of like the huge thing. Like, people would go to her that had like diseases or things going on. And after all of the past lives and talking to the higher selves, they would be healed, which was amazing to read about. She has a website. I don't know. I think it's Quantum Healing Hypnosis, or it's something. I don't know it right now. I'm sorry. But she explains everything on there, or everything is explained on there. So I fell into a rabbit hole and watched almost every single one of Suzanne's like session videos on her channel. She would record people going through past lives and like talking to their higher selves, and it was so interesting to listen to. She had a ton on there. I was just amazed at like the different lives people have lived, and listening to the guidance their higher selves gave them. It was fun for me. And of course, after listening to all that, I decided that I wanted to have a session too with Suzanne, though, because I was obsessed with her. And I think she lives in Idaho. I honestly can't even remember. But I was like, no, I'm going. I don't care if I have to drive there, fly, I'm going. And because I wanted to see if I had past lives. And I really, really, like, so badly wanted to talk to my higher self too. So I went to her website and saw that she was booked out for like 3 years. But I still booked with her because I was determined and I wanted to have a session with her. But then I realized that I couldn't wait 3 years. I'm a very impatient person, and I just wanted to talk to my higher self. I had so many questions about myself. So I went to the Quantum Healing Hypnosis website, and I found like a local practitioner. She was like the same level as Suzanne, but just local. So I booked a session with her, and I just waited. I don't think I had to wait that long. I think it was a couple weeks. But while I waited for my session, I started reading a ton of Dolores's books. She's a lady that created Quantum Healing Hypnosis. And her books were like, she's got a different, like so many of them, but some were about like stories of her clients that she put into trance. And a lot were about aliens. That was like her thing, aliens. And a lot of her clients she hypnotized, she discovered were going to past lives as aliens. And that was like really interesting to listen to or read. Sometimes I listen to audiobooks if I can't read at the time. And she was like able to even communicate with the aliens through her clients while they were in trance. Yeah, her books are so amazing. If anyone's interested, I can definitely suggest some of the best ones because I've read a lot. So it was the day of my session. I was like super excited. My practitioner was so nice. And I remember we talked for like almost 4 hours before she began putting me into trance. And I thought that like by talking to her and getting to know her, I'd relax a little because I'm like a really anxious person. But it didn't happen that way. And because I wasn't able to relax, I wasn't really able to go into trance. Like I feel like I sort of did, but not fully. So I just didn't really get anything out of it. I can't say that. I did get something out of it. I had like this, by the time we were done, I had like this overwhelming feeling that I had to take classes and become a practitioner too. I just like knew it in my soul. That was what I was supposed to do next. So as soon as I got home that night, I enrolled in classes, and then I spent like the next few months becoming a level 1 practitioner and then a level 2 practitioner. There are 3 levels in total. I never made it to the third level because I haven't really been doing it too much lately. But it is like my ultimate goal is one day to get to a level 3 practitioner. But after becoming a level 2 practitioner, I felt confident enough to try and hypnotize someone myself for the first time. You could have done it after level 1, but I was like, no, I'll just wait till level 2. And luckily, my daughter was super open to letting me practice on her. And I just wasn't expecting it to work the first time I did it. I don't know why. Maybe I think I just didn't have much confidence in myself at the time. So I was really, really, really surprised when she like instantly went into trance and was in a past life. I can't remember which life she went to. It was nothing too exciting, just like a normal past life from a few hundred years ago. But I could tell she wasn't pretending because she was using words she didn't know, words I didn't even know, and describing scenes she would definitely have no idea about. So after taking her through that life, I called forth her higher self and asked her higher self a bunch of questions that my daughter had written down. It was amazing to me to like be talking to someone's higher self. I just couldn't believe I had actually done it. And it was around this time that I had like one of Suzanne's videos she had was like a tutorial on how to use a pendulum in a letter chart, like a circle letter chart to communicate with your guides or higher self. The letter chart is like, so it's a piece of paper with a circle on it, a big circle with letters like all around, and you hang the pendulum over in the middle and it swings to letters to spell out words. It kind of like reminds me of a Ouija board, but not really, but sort of. So I watched the whole tutorial and I decided that I wanted to try to do it because I always have questions. So I just figured, okay, I could just use this and ask instead of having to put my daughter into trance and ask questions. Like my questions were about everything. It was like, I don't know, anything you could think of, I wanted to know. So I ordered a rose quartz pendulum off of Amazon. And when it came in the mail, I remember sitting down and I asked a yes or no question. For yes, it would like it's supposed to move back and forth, like you're nodding your head yes. And for no, it swings side to side, like you're saying no. And of course, when I tried, it didn't move at all. And I was like really disappointed. I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? It works for everyone else. Why isn't it working for me? So I gave up on that for a little bit. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Sit there for hours and keep trying? All right, back to hypnosis. So after realizing I could actually do it, I began like having clients come to my house so I could hypnotize them. And I remember it being an exciting time because I love helping people. It's all I want to do. It's all I want to do then. It's still all I want to do in whatever way I can. So I was happy to be helping people. I still practice on my daughter here and there. She was like my little test dummy, and she was so easy to put into trance. I still, to this day, have never had someone go into trance as easy as she does. It's like almost effortless with her. One of the times I was speaking to her higher self, I got like really brave and I asked if it would be okay if I spoke to my own higher self through my daughter. And I really wasn't expecting her higher self to say yes because at that point I still haven't seen any other practitioner do this. I'm not even sure like what made me think it could even be possible, honestly. But her higher self said yes. And she was like, hold on, almost like she was putting a phone down and going to get my higher self. And it was like about a minute before, like there was just silence. And then all of a sudden I heard my daughter, but it was my higher self speaking through my daughter, say hello, and I was shocked. I even like fangirled a little because at that point I had been wanting to talk to my higher self forever. It felt like forever, and I finally was. So I had a whole list of questions about myself that I started asking, like past lives, like why certain things have happened in my life, things about the future. And she gave me all the answers. Some I didn't like, some like shocked me. Like it was really fun to just get to know myself a little bit better, why I am the way I am. So I asked her also why my pendulum wasn't working when I tried asking her questions, and she said that it was because it wasn't a real crystal, and if I got a real crystal pendulum, it would work. So once I counted my daughter out of trance, I instantly went to the nearest crystal store and I got one. When I got home, I sat on my couch and I asked my higher self a simple yes or no question. I think it was something like, "Is my name Jerica?" And it swung in the yes direction, which blew my mind because I was not moving and I really was not expecting it to work. So I was shocked. I kept asking questions though, I kept asking questions I already knew the answers to just to see if it would swing in the right direction. And each time it did, like, I think I sat there for like an hour and I just kept asking the same questions over and over, but like, I just wanted to make sure it was working. And each time I was like, oh my God, I'm actually like talking to my higher self through this pendulum. But I still didn't fully like believe it. I tried to, but it was hard. So when I'd ask other questions and get answers, I like always took it with a grain of salt because I'm like, maybe it's just, I don't know. I think I had trust issues back then a little bit, not as much as I should have. The next time I hypnotized my daughter, I asked again if I could speak to my higher self, and I asked her if it was actually her I had been communicating with through the pendulum, and she said yes. So I trusted so much that I was speaking to my higher self through my daughter when she was in trance that after she said yes, I was like all in with trust. I didn't need any more convincing. And just to clarify, the times I did put my daughter in trance and speak to my higher self, I was, in fact, talking to my higher self. I just want to make that clear before I go on with my story. Okay, so around this time, my daughter started telling me that she was seeing people in our house, and which caught me by surprise, obviously, because it's only her and I that live here in my home. So I didn't take it seriously at first, and I thought maybe she was just like hallucinating. I wasn't sure what was going on. She told me that when she was in her bedroom, she would see like an older lady with long white hair kind of peeking around the corner, looking into her room. Just like she'd like look up and just see for a second an older lady just looking into her room. And it got to the point where she like refused to keep her bedroom door open anymore. She would not keep it open. And then I remember one night we were in the kitchen cooking, and she told me that she kept seeing a little girl with short black hair on the stairs. And this little girl like also had like, she was scared of this little girl because she had dark like around her eyes, kind of like bags like you haven't slept in forever. And the little girl would, every time she saw her, would be like leaning over the stair, like the railing of the stairs, and looking at her in the kitchen. Because the way the stairs are positioned in my house and where the kitchen is, you kind of have to like lean over and turn your head, like kind of look to the right to see into the kitchen. And she said it like happened a lot when she was in the kitchen, but she would only ever see the little girls on, like the little girl on the stairs. She also said that the little girl like never had a smile, just like kind of like a neutral like look on her face with no emotion. And that made her even scarier. I remember my daughter saying that. And I still like I didn't believe it, but I listened. And I remember as I was cooking, my daughter like got up to get something, and as she was walking back to the table facing the stairs, she like looked up and literally jumped with like pure fear on her face. And I was like, what just happened? And she said that she saw the little girl again, but this like leaning over the stairs, but this time the little girl had the biggest smile on her face, and she hadn't seen her smiling before. So it scared her even more because it was like a really big smile. At that time though, we were unaware that the little girl was smiling because finally my daughter had told me what she had been seeing for so long, and all the spirits ever really wanted was actual like recognition. I found that out later on. So the little girl was really happy that finally like she was being talked about, I guess. And I still didn't know what to think though. I knew she had seen something because I like witnessed the fear in her face. I just didn't know if it was real or not. So later that night, I had gone to work. I work nights and I leave around 10:30 at night usually. My daughter, I remember, was in the bathroom, so I knocked on the door to say bye and I went out to my car. I park in front of my living room window. So as I was getting into my car, I looked up at the window and I saw a shadow of a really tall person walk by the window and then like going towards the stairs. And I had just walked out and I knew my daughter was in the bathroom. So I was like, okay, there's no way it's her. It cannot be. So I ran back inside instantly, like maybe 5 seconds later. And of course, my daughter was still in the bathroom. So I asked her if she had left at all. And she said no, she was still on the toilet when I had left, not even a minute before. So I knew I had seen someone. And since it was only her and I living there, I was like, yep, it's a ghost. It has to be. Little did I know that at that time, the reason I saw that spirit was because it was the old lady with the white hair. She could sense that I didn't believe my daughter and she wanted me to believe. So she showed herself to me. So still after seeing that, I sort of, I don't know, I'm trying to think back. I sort of placed it in the back of my mind in a way. Like I knew I had seen a ghost, but still that doubt was there. Until one day I had a guy come over for a hypnosis session. And we were talking for a bit before a session, and he told me he was able to see spirits in his mind, but he wasn't able to communicate with them. And I thought it was like really interesting. So I started asking if he could see any spirits in my house because I was still curious if it was real or not. And he started describing the very same people my daughter had been seeing, like in exact detail. And I was mind blown because I hadn't told anyone, especially him, about what my daughter was seeing. I don't think I had told anyone, maybe my mom. I'm not even sure. So I did a session. So after a session, I begged my daughter to let me hypnotize her again so I could just ask her higher self and like get actual answers on what was going on in my house. And my daughter was all about it because she wanted to know too. She wanted to know if they were hallucinations or if she was seeing ghosts. So once I put her into trance, I got like confirmation that yes, there were spirits in my house. There were 4 of them actually, which shocked me. A lot of shock in this story. The little girl on the stairs, the older lady, a little boy, and a man that only stayed in my bedroom. I remember as her higher self was telling me all this, I was getting scared because I was sitting in my bedroom. My daughter was in trance, so yeah, she was there. I wasn't alone, but it still felt like I was alone. And I knew that there were ghosts around. And so yeah, it was scary. I don't know. It was like scary but exciting also. Of course, I had a million questions about these spirits. I wanted to know their names, their ages, what year they had died, like how long they've been in my house and why. And my daughter's higher self answered them all the best she could. I know that there was one thing. She wasn't able to get the little boy's name because he didn't want to give it. And she wasn't able to really get much information on the man in my room because he didn't like to talk about himself or have anyone talk about him. He was more of someone that kept to himself. Not in like a mean way, but just wasn't interested. But there was one thing she said that kind of worried me. She said that the little girl wanted to warn my daughter about something. And of course, I wanted to know what it was. Like the little girl wanted to talk directly to my daughter. So my daughter's higher self asked if I wanted to speak to the little girl through my daughter. And since I was recording it, my daughter could listen back and hear. So I said yes, of course, because my curiosity was up there. And that was an interesting experience because I was actually speaking to a spirit. She was so sweet and so cute, though. She had been with us for, I think, almost 8 years. We had gone to a graveyard on Easter 8 years ago at that time. I don't know why. It's a weird Easter thing to do, but we did it. And she was there. That's where she was buried. And she really liked my daughter since they were both the same age at that time, which was 9 years old. So she decided to follow us home and just stayed. And I actually have a video up on my YouTube of the conversation with the little girl while my daughter's in trance, for anyone that might be interested in it. So the thing she wanted to warn my daughter about was something to do with her ex-girlfriend. When her ex would come over, the little girl spirit could like sense something in her energy that indicated that at some point my daughter's ex was going to hurt her. She didn't know if it was physically or emotionally, but she knew there was something in her energy that meant something bad. And so she just wanted to protect her. And I kind of was a little like worried at that time, and nothing really came of it. I think that since she was 9 years old, she just like picked up on something, and since she cared about my daughter so much, she just really like wanted to warn her, even if it wasn't serious, which is really sweet if you think about it. And she also said while I was talking to her that at some point I was going to see her on the stairs. Just one time though, and she thought she was going to show herself to me, which really, really scared me. It's like one thing to be talking to a ghost, like through my daughter, but to see her, like just the thought of that scared me. So I also asked her like why she was always on the stairs, and she said that it was because she was afraid of my dog. My dog is very loud and barks a lot sometimes, and for some reason she likes to chase. I have a gate at the bottom of the stairs, so she can't go upstairs. But when the cat goes upstairs, she likes to chase the cat as far as she can go and just bark. I don't know why. It's annoying, but it happens. And it scared the little girl. And she never came down fully. She would just always sit on the stairs. And she also said it was a good place to sit so she could see the entire downstairs and watch us. She liked to watch us. So knowing that she was going to show herself to me and not knowing when, I remember I avoided looking at my stairs as much as I could after that because I was so afraid to see her. And I never saw her on the stairs, actually. Not with my eyes, like my physical eyes. I eventually ended up seeing her later on in the year. It was on Christmas, but it was in my mind. And it was only one time, just like she said. And she wasn't on the stairs when I saw her. She was standing in my living room. And she looked like very healthy. It was after she had crossed over. And I remember she showed me the stairs also with a big X over the stairs, meaning I took it as she was showing me that because she wasn't afraid to be on come downstairs anymore. That's the way I interpreted it back then. And I still do. So after that, I had a really, really hard time existing in my house knowing that there were ghosts. I think anyone would. I was scared to be alone, and I didn't like the idea of being watched all the time. I had gone my whole life thinking that when I'm alone, I'm alone. And then all of a sudden I realized that I'm never alone and I'm always being watched. And that was a lot for me to handle. So it took me like 2 weeks to be okay with it and not be afraid anymore. Maybe a little less, but I keep thinking it was around 2 weeks. And during that time, I started using my pendulum to ask the spirits yes or no questions. And that actually helped ease my fear because I was getting to know them as people, not just ghosts. It made them feel like people, which they are. They are definitely people. And since the pendulum was working, I decided to try and use the letter chart again so I could really ask questions and get more than just a yes or no answer. And it worked, which was a lot more than, it hadn't worked before. So I was I couldn't believe that was working. So I used that as a way of getting to know them too. I actually started to care about them a lot. The more I talked to them and asked them questions, they became like a little family because I didn't talk to the man, obviously. I left him alone as much as I could, which was hard because I'd go into my room and I'd be trying so hard not to acknowledge him. It's not that I don't know. I knew that if I thought about him, he could hear that. So it was more of like I tried to control my thoughts so I wasn't thinking about him. Um, so after a few weeks of that, I started like using letter chart and pendulum to talk to my higher self. It was much easier than just having to put my daughter into trance every time to ask questions. Even though it is kind of tedious, like to hold the pendulum over the letter chart and have each word spelled out. Like after a little while, your arm starts to hurt. It takes forever, but it was still a way to communicate. And I was so thankful for that. It was a really fun time in my life, actually. And I decided to do this thing that I called open ended channeling, like where I would open a portal and allow whoever to come through and give me a message. And I always just assumed it would be someone that's for my highest good. I never thought it would be something bad. That didn't even cross my mind ever. And I did this once a week. I didn't want to like do it every day because I didn't want to become dependent on it. And I was like, that was like important to me for some reason. Like I wanted guidance, I wanted messages, but I wanted to do it in a healthy way. And I was always secretly hoping that maybe a family member would pass, like that had passed away, would come through. But I had my higher self come through, I think my guides, a few others, and then the universe one day came through. And I was confused by that because I'm like, how am I speaking to the entire universe? Like, how does that work? But I just accepted it. I don't think I ever asked. I just was like, okay, it's the universe, I guess. Around that time, I remember I would be sitting on my couch watching TV and I would notice like light and movement on the stairs. It was hard not to notice. Like it was there. It caught my attention each time and I feel like it just like got a little bit more and more as the days went on and I didn't know what it was at all. The best way I can describe it is like it looked like energy. If you could see energy, that's what it looked like. With no form though, just like energy and light. That's what it looked like. So I decided to use the letter chart to ask my higher self what was going on. And I remember she said something like, "We are so proud of you. So we decided to give you a gift. You can now see and read energy." And I had no idea what that meant at all. I think I just thought maybe I was going to be able to like see people's auras and maybe be able to read their auras or see like the energy of things. I didn't know that meant that I was seeing spirits or seeing like apparitions of spirits, like pieces of their energy. I did not know that at that time. So before I go on, I just want to point out a few things. I've had have always had psychic abilities. I just wasn't aware of it for a few different reasons. The experiences were like so subtle throughout my life and so few that it was hard to notice. And like also when it came to seeing things in my mind or hearing like things or people, I just thought it was my active imagination and everyone experienced something like that. For hearing, even now it comes in like like years ago throughout my life, it was very, very, very subtle. It would be like a thought almost, but it wouldn't be my own. And it would be in my voice. Sometimes it would be slightly different, but it always started as a thought. That's the best way I know how to describe it. A few years prior to this, I remember I was laying in bed one night with my husband at the time, and I closed my eyes and I started like seeing face after face after face pop into my mind of people that I've never ever seen before. And I told him about it as it was happening. And I asked if things like that ever happened to him. And he said, no, that doesn't seem normal. I've never experienced that. And there's like, would also be times that I'd close my eyes and see the most random things before bed. And I'd tell him about it. It was kind of fun just to like lay there and just see these things. And he always seemed kind of curious about it. One time I even saw a clown from what looked like the 1800s, which is very terrifying, by the way. I hate clowns, but I especially hate ones from the 1800s. If you don't know what they look like, you should Google them. They're so scary. And also, when I was around 13, I'd always see this old man in the window of this abandoned mill across the street from my bus stop. He'd always be staring at me, which I thought was weird. He'd just be standing there in the window staring at me, like the whole time I was at the bus stop. And I remember I mostly saw him this one winter. So it was winter out. And I just remember I knew there was no electricity in the mill because it's abandoned. So I remember thinking and wondering if he was cold because it was like 0 degrees out. I'm like, it's cold out here. It's got to be cold in there. And he just stood there. He wasn't wearing like winter clothes or anything. He was just wearing normal clothes. Um, I didn't know at the time that nobody else could see him because he was a spirit. I just thought he was a sad looking man in the window. And I never like asked anyone else at the bus stop if they saw him because I don't think I was really friends with anyone at the bus stop. Just kind of like kept to myself. So yeah, I've always had certain abilities, just not very strong. And it makes me wonder like how many other times did I see spirits as a kid or in my early teens and just thought they were regular people because he literally looked like a regular person, just like you and I. So I always wonder that. I've never really asked my guides, but maybe I will. Okay, back to seeing energy. After that, after like my higher self told me what was going on, it started to pick up a lot. The energy I was seeing like started to have more form. I couldn't make out details of like a person, like facial features or anything or clothes, but I knew it was a person in energy form. And I again don't know how to describe that. Maybe Google like apparitions. That's the only way. I know I've Googled apparitions before, and some of the things I've seen do resemble what I was seeing at that time. One night at work, in the middle of the night, while all my clients were asleep, I saw like two very distinct spirits walking in the living room. They kind of like were walking back and forth. And that was at that time the clearest I had seen them that I knew of, and it scared me. I was not mentally prepared for it. So not only could I see them clearly that night, but like I also started to hear them in my mind. And that was just way too much for me. I couldn't make out what they were saying. It sounded like, so if you're listening to your neighbors like through a really thick wall, like you can hear them talking, but it's so muffled you can't make out anything. That's what it sounded like to me. Very, very muffled. And I was scared. Like I said, I was not ready for that. I was barely ready to be seeing them, so to hear them too. So when I got home that next morning, I asked my higher self through the letter chart. The only way I was able to communicate with my higher self at this time was through the letter chart. So when I say that, that's what I mean. She told me to visualize a light switch in my mind and to see myself turning it off to make it stop. And if I wanted to start it again, to see myself flipping the switch on. So I did that the best I could, and it actually stopped for a few days, maybe like a day or two. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. I really do have control over this. And then all of a sudden, it just started again without me having flipped the switch on in my mind. And I was really, really upset about it. So I again asked my higher self, like, why? And she said she was forcing me to see them until I learned to read their energy. And when I know we were like communicating through a letter chart, but it just didn't feel very loving and nice when she said it. Like I don't know, I could just feel that. And that should have been my first red flag, but it wasn't. So I thought, okay, well, I have no choice. I'll just accept it. And I did. I learned to live with seeing them all the time. It took a little bit, but I did learn. And I remember asking her what she meant by learning to read their energy, like right away. And she said, hearing them talk to you. And I was like, okay, so I need to learn to do this so I can make it stop when I want to. That was my goal. At that time, I was like, I need to learn and then I'll have control over it. But at that point, hearing spirits was difficult. The few times I did, it was always muffled like what I described. And then it just stopped completely. Like it just was not happening. No matter how hard I tried, I could not make it start again. So I got really frustrated and just didn't know how to learn to do it. And my higher self was not giving me any more information on it. But So that was like not the most fun time for me. But there were a lot of cool experiences I had around the same time, and I want to tell you guys a little bit about them. Okay, so I remember I was sitting on my couch and I remember seeing a spirit walking down my stairs. I have this one stair that creaks loudly when you step on it. And as the spirit stepped on that stair, it creaked, and I thought that was really cool because I could see and also hear something like physical, my physical reality, to kind of back up what I was seeing. Another time I went to get something out of my fridge, and as I shut the door and turned around, I came face to face with the spirit of a little boy who was just smiling at me. He was an apparition, so he was like see-through and kind of like tinted an orange color. Like he didn't have color. He was just a little tinted orange. It's really hard to describe. But I blinked and he was gone. And that didn't scare me. I was like, at that point, I was fully accepting of all of that. Like seeing spirits, I actually enjoyed it. I wanted to see them more clearly than I had been. Spirits would open cabinets or shut them. Never like in front of me. I'd leave a room. I'd be alone. I'd leave a room. I'd come back and the cabinets are open, or I'd leave a cabinet open and be like, can you shut it? And I'd leave to go do something. I come back and it'd be shut. Same with doors, like little things like that. And my all-time favorite experience was with my cat, Loki, who had passed away a few years before that. Loki was my baby. He was my son. I have never, ever, ever loved a cat as much as I love him, and I never will. There'll never be another cat like him. So losing him was devastating, probably one of the hardest days of my life. But I had seen him a few times during that time, which made me so happy. Just like, and he was more physical when I would see him than apparition. Like, I think it's because he was an all black cat. So when I see him, it would be all black instead of like, I don't know how to describe it, but I would see him. I feel like I saw him more clearly. One day I was sitting on my couch and I felt something jump up behind me on the back of the couch and start walking back and forth. Like I could feel the pressure of something walking, but I couldn't see anything. And I just like knew it was my cat. And all of a sudden I started feeling him making like biscuits with his paws, like kneading, I think that's what it's called, for like 2 minutes right behind my head. I could feel the pressure of that. And I remember being kind of scared by that because I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, this is actually happening. But also not scared because I knew it was him. It was a confusing feeling. And then I remember it stopped, like he stopped. And then all of a sudden I felt his energy on my lap and chest. When he was alive, he would sit on my lap and then like put his paws up on my chest like he was giving me a hug. It was like that, but I couldn't physically feel him. It was just energy, which is really hard to put into words, like what that feels like. It was strong though, and I almost felt like I couldn't breathe because it was like right on my chest. But it didn't scare me because I knew it was him. That's my favorite experience, and I keep that one really close to my heart. I still have not experienced anything quite like that again. I mean, sometimes I'll feel like a spirit poke my arm or touch my back, or I'll like feel the energy from my guides, like I'll feel their energy on my arm, kind of like they're rubbing my arm, but nothing like what I experienced with Loki that day. So those were some exciting experiences I was having during that time. And like I said, there was a lot of not fun things I was going through too. I was in a group chat with my family at the time, and I kept sharing everything I was experiencing because it was so amazing to me. I was like literally in shock all the time that this was my life. I never like once thought that they wouldn't believe me because it was so real. But they didn't believe me at all. And some of them weren't the nicest about it. So that was really difficult for me, especially like I understand not believing somebody, but to be like so mean about it. I don't know. I just didn't understand. I would use a letter chart to ask my higher self for guidance about how to navigate that because it did break my heart that they didn't believe me. I also felt like extremely betrayed because when this certain family member would attack me in the group chat, none of my other family would step in and stand up for me at all. They wouldn't do anything about it. And that I found out stems from a past life where I was hung for having the same abilities. There were people in the crowd that I had helped, and instead of like standing up for me, they just watched me be killed. And some of those same people are now my family members in this lifetime. So that betrayal is a soul wound. So when I felt betrayed by no one standing up for me in the group chat, like that literally like hurt my soul. But I've since then healed those feelings. Like it's okay now. Not that like it does not hurt. I don't feel betrayed anymore. So I'm really proud of myself for that. I just want to give myself some credit because that was hard. But anyway, my higher self would tell me that they think I'm crazy, which made me at the time not even want to talk to them anymore. I decided to isolate myself from them until I was able to prove that the things that I was experiencing were real. And I thought that once I was able to hear and communicate with the spirits myself without the letter chart, I could prove it to them. I tried to prove it to them with the letter chart, but they always just thought that I was the one moving the pendulum. So that didn't really work out. But I figured, like, if I can communicate with a spirit, I can ask it questions that only that spirit would know, and then I could find a way to prove it to them. So that was my goal. And I'd always ask my higher self when it was going to happen, and she would give me like exact days and exact times when I'd hear them. But the day and the time would come and nothing would happen. And this happened like a dozen times. So I'd ask why, and she would always give me some excuse and then give me another time to like wait for. And she'd be like, tomorrow at 5 p.m. And I'm like, that's really specific, but okay. And it wouldn't happen. And that, again, should have been a red flag. And then things started getting even more off when I talked to my higher self. She would tell me like bad things were going to happen to me to warn me. So I'd avoid going certain places or doing certain things. And it seemed like every single day she would say something bad was going to happen. And I was constantly afraid and couldn't figure out like why I was having such bad luck in life. Like, why did all these people hate me? Why were all these bad things going to happen to me if I did anything other than leave my house? So I stopped going to work as much as I could or going anywhere out of fear. Because I trusted my higher self completely. I really, really did. So I was like, I just believed everything she said. She would say bad things were going to happen to my family. So I try to warn them because I love them and care about them. And they would just think I was even crazier than before. I remember there was one time my friend, her cat had gone missing. So I was like, I'll ask my higher self where your cat is. Like, because I wanted to help. That was my thing. I just wanted to help. So I asked my higher self and she gave some insane story. I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it ended up not being the truth at all. Like, I think she even said the cat died. The cat was not dead. The cat came, my friend found the cat a while later. But still, I chose to trust. I caught my higher self in so many lies, and she would just give an excuse. And for some reason, I just accepted it, or I like made excuses for her, maybe. I'm not sure. And I don't want to like go into too much personal detail over everything else that happened during that time in my life, because it was a lot, and it's just like it was a lot. So I don't need to go into too much detail. But I was alone, and I thought everyone thought I was crazy. I didn't think that. I was convinced of that because of my higher self. Everything bad that was happening was caused by things my higher self was telling me. She told me everyone I cared about hated me. She would tell me what they were thinking about me, which was never good, ever. There was never anything good. She never had anything good to tell me. She would tell me who I couldn't and couldn't trust, and basically couldn't trust anyone. And I believed it all. And it was around this time that I started to realize that something wasn't right. Like, I started suspecting that maybe it wasn't my higher self I was talking to through the letter chart. But even the thought of that destroyed me because I had trusted with all of my heart. So, like, I didn't even want to entertain the idea that it could be anything other than my higher self. But the more lies, like, I caught her in, the more things she said would happen that didn't happen, my suspicions grew. Then one day she slipped up while talking to me, and I wish I could remember exactly what it was she had said. I can't though, but it was like so obvious. Like, she was not at this point very good at lying or keeping up with her stories. Because eventually, when all someone does is lie, you're going to catch them and like really, really catch them. So I can't remember exactly how, but I came out and I asked if she was really my higher self. And she said no. She said she was a negative energy and had been the entire time. So, of course, my heart dropped and I felt like I couldn't breathe. It felt like my whole world collapsed in that moment. Like my worst fears were coming true because I had been thinking about it up until then. Maybe for a few days. I'm like, no, no, it's not. It can't be true. And then it was. So I'm going to call this negative energy a he, because after that, that's how he referred to himself. He, the negative energy, told me that I was actually crazy and I had been hallucinating everything the whole time. Um, I've never felt more hopeless than I did in that moment. I had lost my entire family, which was very traumatic for me. And I kept thinking, for what? Because I was crazy? Like, I was trying so hard to prove I wasn't crazy, and the whole time I was. A lot of other things had happened before then to make that even more of a traumatic rock bottom moment, but again, I don't want to go into detail about that. It's too personal. I'm sorry. So the days following that, I did my best to cope and come to terms with it all. I did everything in my power to slowly pick up all the pieces of my life while keeping this whole entire negative energy thing to myself, because I was so ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody. Um, I kept seeing spirits, but now every time I saw them, I felt disgust in myself and I felt shame because I thought they were just hallucinations. I truly believed I was crazy. I still use the letter chart to communicate with the negative energy because I wanted to know what he was and why he did this to me. He lied all the time though. Sometimes I would ask the same question and he'd tell me an answer, and I'd ask again and then he'd tell me a different answer. So it wasn't it was serious lies. But what he did tell me, things that I think he wasn't lying to me about, was he wasn't human. He said that. And I'm like, well, what are you? And that's when the whole I'm a negative energy thing, and I still don't fully understand, but he told me he attached to me while I was using the pendulum in the letter chart. He had been pretending the whole time. I tried everything. I can't tell you guys exactly the moment he attached to me. I just assume it was one of the first times I used the letter chart and the pendulum, because I don't know for sure. I could easily find out by asking my guides, but I kind of just don't want to know exactly when, I guess. I tried everything I could think of to get rid of him. I Googled everything. I'd use crystals, candles, spells, sage, you name it, and I tried it, and he still wouldn't leave. He told me he was never going to leave. He was going to be attached to me forever, and I was never going to be able to get rid of him. So at that point, I had still been keeping everything to myself, but I decided I wanted to tell my mom. So I asked her to come over so I could explain it all to her. And I know she still thought I was crazy, and again, I did as well. So I didn't know what was real and what wasn't anymore. The only thing that I knew for sure that was real is I was communicating with something that wasn't human. I knew that. That was the only thing that I could anchor into. I remember I'd sit still. Even then I was like, am I though? So I'd sit still like as still as I could, and I'd hold my arm still with my other arm, and I'd be holding the pendulum, and I'd ask questions just to show myself that it was real and I wasn't hallucinating that. Like I'd be like, okay, Jerica, don't move. And I'd ask a question and it would still swing. And I'd be like, I'm not doing that. I'm watching myself. I'm not doing that. So this can't be a hallucination. So when my mom was over, I tried to do the same thing. I held my arm still over the letter chart while holding the pendulum and tried to show her that part was real. It's, she still didn't believe me because she'd be like, let me try. So she'd hold the pendulum and ask a question. And of course, the negative energy wouldn't move the pendulum because he just wanted me to look crazy. So I'm like, it wouldn't work for her, but it would work for me. So she thought I was moving it. And it's actually kind of funny because while I was trying to show her that, the negative energy spelled out, your mom talks too much. And I was like, Mom, I swear I did not spell that out. But I know she didn't believe me. Um, but I tried to tell her what was going on. I needed to talk to somebody, and I hadn't talked to anyone at that point. So she left that day probably thinking I was crazier than before. But I needed to know for sure if I was crazy or not. And since I knew I had spoken to my actual higher self through my daughter during hypnosis before she left that day, um, I told her, I was like, I know that I was talking to my actual higher self through hypnosis. And so we came up with the idea that I would just hypnotize my daughter again. And then I would be able to talk to my higher self, my actual higher self. And luckily, my daughter was willing. And I was like, okay, I'm going to find out if I'm crazy. I'm going to find out what's going on. I'm going to get all the answers. So I put her into trance. And I remember I was like crying while asking what was going on. I was like so desperate for answers. And I asked her if I was really crazy. And she said yes. She said that I needed help and went on in the most unloving way possible about everything, like just being mean and not nice. Like, and that's a really painful memory for me because I thought I was talking to my higher self, my actual higher self again. And she was confirming I was crazy, and she seemed mad at me for it and like really dismissive. So after that, like I counted my daughter out of trance and I just went into like acceptance. I just was like, okay, I'm crazy. Like this is my life. But I didn't know at the time that the negative energy had been speaking through my daughter during that session. Since he was now attached to me, he was able to like sneak his way in to be able to do that. But during previous sessions, before all of this, he wasn't able to do that because he wasn't around. So I had actually been talking to my higher self in previous sessions, just not this one time. But because I thought it was my higher self, again, I became like more depressed. Even though I was in acceptance, I was depressed because not only did I think I was crazy, my own higher self, who I loved so much, acted as if she hated me. So it made everything feel so much worse. I truly felt alone completely. And it was about a month I like knowingly had this negative energy attached to me. And there was nothing that I could do about it. I felt like this was going to be my life forever, especially since he told me that that was going to be my life forever. He like had me in a bubble of negativity. He was entangled into my energy and my mind, so my emotions weren't my own. My thoughts didn't even feel like they were my own at times. Um, Everything in my life just felt 1,000 times worse because of him. I was constantly fighting thoughts of suicide as well, which is not like me at all. Like it wasn't just thoughts. Like I would come up with plans. Like I'd be like, that's my only way I can escape. Like that was how real it got. So all I could do was live with this negative energy attached to me because I had no choice. Because ending my life was, as much as I thought about it, it wasn't something I was ever going to do because I couldn't do that to my daughter. So I tried to communicate with it and ask questions because, like, what else was I going to do with my time? And again, he was never honest, so I was always getting frustrated with him. He would tell me that he loved me and say things like, which is really weird, that he always said he loved me. He would say things like, I can help you. I can read people's minds for you. We can be unstoppable. Like, he was trying to, like, I don't know, like, he wanted to be like a team with me to do bad things, if that makes sense. And I'd be like, no, I don't trust you at all. So I know you just lie about what people are thinking about. So I wasn't interested. And even if he wasn't a liar, obviously I wouldn't be interested in that. If I said I was going to stop using the letter chart to talk to him, he would threaten me in different ways. One night he said, I got frustrated with him because I would ask him questions and he would just go in circles or not give answers. So I was like, I'm done talking to you. And he'd be like, okay, be prepared to be scared. And I had no idea what he meant by that. Like, I didn't know if what he was going to do, but nothing happened. So, I mean, it wasn't that bad. But that was probably the only night, that one night, that I was actually afraid of him in like a horror movie type of way, because I didn't know what he was capable of at that point. And I just expected to like see him or something was going to happen to me, but nothing did. Other times when I wasn't doing what he wanted, he would threaten to slit my throat, or different ways in which he wanted to kill me or kill my dog. He did not like my dog at all, which really upset me because she's a beautiful princess and I love her so much. And I think that's why he didn't like her, because I love her so much. I knew he wasn't going to physically hurt me because I figured if he was able to, then he would have by that point, and he didn't. I mean, sometimes I'd feel like him touch my arm, like his energy. It would, I don't know, I again don't know how to describe what that feels like. If you haven't felt it, then you don't know. If you have, then you understand. So it didn't bother me too much. I actually like started becoming amused by the things he said. Like, it was entertaining in a way to see like his little temper tantrums when he wouldn't get his way. So that was like, I think I was just so numb to everything. I was just like, okay, like, he's like he's just like a child that doesn't get his way, so he's just gonna threaten and not do anything about it. But I also felt abandoned by my higher self. Like, I knew I had spoken to her through hypnosis and that was real. Like, why didn't she warn me of what was going to happen? Like, why did she let this happen to me? I remember I kept thinking that over and over. And I was like, where is she now? And why is she not helping me? Like, why has she left me? And I remember getting really angry at her and at God for letting this happen to me and just leaving me alone with this negative energy and no one to believe me. So one day I remembered that there was these two ladies I had gone to earlier in the year for a soul healing session, and one of them was a medium. So as a final attempt for help, I reached out to them and I explained everything that had been going on, even though I knew that they might think I'm crazy too, because everyone did. So I wasn't sure how they were going to respond, but luckily they believed me, which was nice because, again, nobody had believed me at all. So I went to see them and I remember apologizing in advance if I was crazy and for possibly like wasting their time, because I still was convinced I was crazy to some degree. But the medium instantly connected to the negative energy and like began talking to him. And I actually have a video on my YouTube of that too, for anyone that's interested in what a negative energy has to say, like why it does what it does, like what it is, sort of. Obviously, you don't hear him talking because she's communicating with him telepathically, but you get to hear like she says what he's saying. But anyway, in that moment, I felt relief and I felt hope, and I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt like it was validation, and I needed that desperately. She found out that my soul was contracted to have that experience. It was something that I wanted to go through for soul growth before incarnating here. It was all planned out. The negative energy was created for that purpose. Like, yeah, it had attached to a few other people prior to me, and it even had made a few people end their lives, which was his ultimate goal with me. Like, I think that's the ultimate goal of any negative energy, is to like get the person it attaches to end their life. And it makes me sad, like, to think about those people, but I was also reminded that it's something those people wanted to experience as well. So I try to remember that when, like, it becomes too much to think about. And the medium explained that the negative energy didn't know any other way to be. In his mind, or like whatever a negative energy has, he was doing what he thought was right. He didn't see any wrong in what he was doing. To be good to him was to be bad, if that makes sense. So when I'd ask him why he couldn't just be good, he was always so confused because to him, like I said, he was being good, what he knew as good. And that was a huge thing, like throughout that month that I was aware of what he was. I would beg him to just stop and to just be good. I could tell, like, that there was some good in him, like small little slivers of it. I remember one time I was having a panic attack, and while he was pretending to be my higher self, he helped me through it. Like, he didn't have to do that, you know? He would always tell me he loved me after each, like, message he gave me, even after I discovered what he was. Like, and all I know he lied and it wasn't true, but still, like, there was just little things he did that I could just feel that he wasn't completely bad. So when it was time to get rid of him, I did feel some sadness about it, which is crazy to say, I know, but to know it is to live it, I guess. The medium and my higher self, like, both healed him, and he went back to the light, to the oneness. So he's not a negative energy anymore. He is part of the light. The medium was able to talk to my actual higher self, said to not feel as though I need to communicate with him when I think of him. She said that when I do think of him, to just send him love. Even though he's good, he's love, he's light now, I still don't need to communicate with him ever again. And that I don't communicate with him. But when he does come to mind, I always thank him for giving me that experience and helping me grow. And I do tell him I love him because I am thankful for that experience. I wouldn't be where I am today without him, without having gone through all of that. As painful and traumatic and awful as it was, I would not be who I am right now without him. So while the medium was communicating with my higher self, I was able to ask questions and get answers. I found out I'm not crazy at all, not once. I was never hallucinating anything I was seeing, which was such a relief because that was something I was convinced I was hallucinating. Like, I didn't know. So seeing spirits would have started picking up from me at that time regardless because it was written in the stars, but it was also amplified because when the negative energy pretended to be my higher self and told me I had the gift, I, like, wholeheartedly believed it. And belief is our strongest power. So, because I believed it as strongly as I did, my gifts just took off during that time. There was no lack of trust, there was no doubt, there was just pure belief. My higher self said that within a year, we're actually coming up, it happened a year ago exactly, like during this time. But we're coming up, next month will be a year when I got rid of them. So we're coming up on a year. She said I'd see exactly why, like, all of this had to happen to me the way it did. And I am starting to see that. I don't see the full picture yet, but I know it's coming. My abilities are now stronger. I can communicate with spirits and my guides without using outside sources. I can do it from within. I still, to this day, have not touched another letter chart. I never will again. Or a Ouija board. Nothing like that. I refuse. I don't even want to be near them. I was assured that I will never have another experience with darkness to this degree. Like, nothing will ever attach to me again. My higher self made sure to tell me that. But I still just not interested in being around those things. I know how to protect myself. I know who I am. I've healed things throughout my entire life and from a lot of past lives that have stayed with my soul. I speak my truth now without fear of what anyone's going to think of me because their opinions don't change how I see myself and what I know is real. I don't feel betrayed anymore by my family's opinions of me, which is huge. That was a hard one for me to overcome. I've learned to set boundaries with people. Um, and that was a hard one too because I've never really had boundaries with people, especially when they treat me bad. I just, I never had boundaries, but now I do. I've learned to fully love myself in every way. I've learned discernment. That's huge. And none of this would have ever been possible without that experience. And this is just the beginning. My guides say I'm just entering my bloom period. There are people that are meant to be coming into my life soon that will accept me and understand me. My soul family, my soul mate. My abilities will continue to strengthen, and I can use them to help in all the ways that I'm meant to, which is what I've always wanted to do. And I just want to, real quick, go into some detail about how to discern when you're communicating with someone from the light and when you're communicating with darkness before I end this video. I think that might be the most helpful part of this video, especially for those new to their abilities. So, darkness is very smart and very tricky. It will try to earn your trust with lies and by pretending in whatever way it feels fit for you. Instead of loving guidance, it will tell you that you have to do something. Like it will never give you it doesn't give you a choice. It tells you you have to do something. It's demanding and it keeps you wrapped in fear, even if only slightly. Fear is how it survives. Like negative like emotions is that you have, it feeds off of that. The more you suffer, the more it thrives. Beings and energies of light are the opposite. They guide but don't pressure or demand. They are just love. When you feel fear, sadness of any kind, they respond with love. They don't fuel the fire or give you more to be afraid of. They have only your best interest in mind. They don't judge. If they suggest, if you ask for guidance and they give you what like suggestions on what's for your highest good and you don't follow it, they don't judge you for that. They don't get mad at you. They love you unconditionally. Okay, so here's an example of something darkness might say. Obviously, everything I've just described in my story is an example of something darkness might say, but also to keep it simple, they might say, if you don't do this, blah, 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 bad things are going to happen. That's an example. And someone of light might say, you can choose this if you're ready, but we'll love you either way. And they really do love you either way. You can also feel the difference, and that's where trusting yourself is huge. I didn't trust myself back then at all. I've since learned to. It's still something I'm learning to do. It's going to be continuous because of what I went through. But I trust myself so much more than I ever have before. And you can like feel in your heart and your entire being when something feels off. Anyone can. So you should always trust that. So yeah, overall, this was a very traumatic experience, but I wouldn't change a thing about it. I'm now surrounded by unconditional love from my guides and my higher self, my actual guides and my actual higher self. Every day, like, I feel like there's something magical happening. Like, I get to experience the coolest things, and I love my life. And I know that there's so much more to come. Like, my abilities are just like starting to get stronger, and I don't know like what my future holds, but I know it's going to be amazing and I'm very excited for it. So, there you go. That's my story and my truth, all of it. And I hope that it helps and inspires those that it's meant to. And I think that I might consider making more videos in the future. Maybe like about different psychic senses and about my experiences with them, like clairaudience, clairvoyance, all the clairs. And maybe like I just recently went through a healing journey, which was intense. My guides have been with me through the whole thing. So I might make a video about that and like how I communicate with my guides and like just the love that they give me every day. Just things like that. So if I do, stay tuned. All right. Bye, guys.